The Senate will remain in recess to observe moments of appreciation for Senator Coram. There was extensive stakeholdering and an agreement last night to limit the number of jokes allowed in this memorandum, including a handshake agreement that Senator Coram gets 0 jokes during his speech. Sorry, sir, you used them all up this session. Minority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, we continue to pay tribute to departing members. I would ask that the reader read the tribute for Senator Don Coram.
Please read the tribute for Senator Don Coram.
The Senate of the Colorado Legislature, convened in the second regular session of the 73rd General Assembly, hereby extends our sincerest congratulations, commendation, and thanks to Don Coram, Senate District 6. Senator Coram was elected to serve in the 69th, 70th, 71st, 72nd, and 73rd General Assemblies, where he represented his fellow citizens with dedication and honor. During his tenure, Senator Coram served on the Agricultural, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee and the Judiciary, Local Government, and Transportation and Energy Committees. He also chaired the County Courthouse and County Jail Funding and Overcrowding Solutions Committee, while serving on a wide variety of other interim committees, including on the Transportation Legislation Review, the Water Resources Review, the Wildfire Matters Review, and the Colorado Youth Advisory Council Review Committees. The citizens of Colorado and the members of the Senate express gratitude for Senator Coram's exemplary service to our great state and wish him well in his future endeavors. Given this 11th day of May, 2022, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, Steve Fenberg, President of the Senate.
Colleagues, take a seat. We're going to be here for a while on this one, I think. As I've shared before, elected in 2010, Senator Scott, Senator Coram, and I were in that class together. And Speaker McNulty assigned Don and I to be in adjacent seats in the State House. It was a challenge because, as we all know, Senator Coram has an amazing ability to remember jokes. I think it's probably true that he can't forget one. I gave you a little insight about my unique dyslexic brain. For some reason, I can't remember a joke. I mean, why did the chicken cross the road is about as far as I can get. But Don, Senator Coram, it doesn't matter what the circumstance is, who's done what, he's got a joke that fits those circumstances. It's incredible. So there is one particular stained glass window in the house that I use as my crutch. And Don knows my look. Don would lean over and tell a joke in my ear. And the only way that I found to not just burst out laughing and interrupt the house is to just focus on that stained glass window. So there were times where colleagues would ask, what are you looking at? And I'm just like, I'm just trying to maintain composure because I got to sit next to Coram. Senator Coram exemplifies what it means to be a state representative or a state senator. Our districts are different. The district that I represent, the district that I represented in the House, it's probably different than where you live. The majority of voters might agree or disagree on a given topic, but the accumulation of all of the topics and then figuring out where the majority is in your district, that's something that each legislator needs to pay close attention to. When Don was in the House, I think his district was maybe a little bit further right than when he came to the Senate. Now he's got a district that's a little bit further right than his old Senate district. But because of this process that we no longer have really any control over redistricting, he can't run again. And I think that's unfortunate. Or not I think, it is unfortunate. because the people of western Colorado, southwestern Colorado, have had a champion. And I've been proud to be here on, say, transportation amendments or bills to support him when he talks about Highway 141. We've talked about it together. Highway 141 runs from Whitewater down to Gateway, down to Nucla, down to Natarita, along the Dolores River. And if you haven't been there, I promise you, it's the most beautiful part of Colorado you haven't seen. We can argue about where the most beautiful place in Colorado is. My friend, Madam President, might argue the Gore Range or the Maroon Bells. I'm pretty partial to Blue Mesa Reservoir. But let me tell you, you might have your favorite, most beautiful spot in Colorado, but if you haven't been down Highway 141, I promise you, it's the most beautiful place you haven't seen. Whether you're on 2 wheels, Tiger, good to see you, or 4 or more, go check it out. But redistricting has, unfortunately, made it impossible for Senator Coram to run for re-election. So we're missing someone who represented western, southwestern Colorado very well. There are parts of that district that aren't deep red. Durango. And yet, Senator Coram over the years has been praised by Democrats who live in that district. He's been praised by Republicans who live in that district. A couple of years ago, Diane and I took a trip out to Moab, sort of overlanding. And we came back through Nucla and a new paved road that runs out of Nucla up onto the Uncompahgre Plateau, the forest there. Beautiful part of the state if you haven't been there. And then we rolled down through Montrose. And we were driving along the main street there, and I thought, I need coffee. It's been a long drive. I need coffee. And I remembered, wait, Don's son owns a coffee shop. Where is that? And I'm kind of looking along the street, left and right, looking for the coffee shop. And all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. That was Don. So I took 3 rights, went around the block, came up, and there were the Corams. His red SUV that we see parked outside. And I pulled up really close behind him, and he's talking to his wife through the passenger door, and I pulled up even a little closer. I was trying to be obnoxious and waiting for Don to pick his head up, what the H you doing here, cowboy? And then he finally saw me. I think I might have had to get out the truck and say, hey. And there was a warm embrace to meet the senator in his district. We got to tour the county party headquarters in an old Victorian home. And there was such pride there. I remember serving with Senator Coram in our early years in the House. And there was a bill about civil unions. We came to learn about his son, and the love that he and his wife have for their son, and the support. If you want to see examples of unconditional love, look no further than Don Coram. Being a Republican in the state legislature when that bill was being considered with a son who is gay was tough. But Don Coram's tough too. I can give you 9 reasons why he's a great representative of his Senate district. That was cool. Don shows up a few years ago and says, yeah, I had a little accident. They're going to have to cut off one of my fingers. We call him number 9 in our caucus. We ought to get him a jersey. But even that, he wasn't bitter. He just kept going and kept his positive outlook, sense of humor, and again, a joke for every single circumstance. Don has succeeded in a lot of policy, and he's failed. He knows what defeat is like. And just recently, one of the best memories I have, most fond memories, is his speech here at the well when he pulled his name off of a bill that I cared about. He and I were standing here together last year advocating for the same position on the same issue. We had to do something about Delta's 8 and 10 THC. But here Don, because he's a principled man, because he represents the constituents, those small hemp growers in his district and around Colorado, he represents them very well. Pulled his name off of a bill, and I went and asked him, I think he's related this already, but would you mind if I put my name on it? Because I really want that policy to move forward. He said, not a problem. Not a problem. Don has met with opposition in this building, and I know I have voted no on many of his bills, and he's given me some grief about that. But he's done me better than I've done him. I don't remember Don Coram ever voting against anything I ran. If he did, it certainly didn't kill it. Senator, I want to turn this over so that our colleagues can make better fun of you and remember great things about you, but it's really been an honor to serve with you these 12 years. I'll be sad to not be working with you and have that instant joke-telling ability to just break the ice, break the tension in a stressful situation. And I truly wish you and your wife, your whole family, your son, just healthy, fun, exciting, prosperous times in your future. And if you're ever in Florida, I hope you look me up. I promise you, if I'm ever rolling through Montrose, I'll come find you. God bless you, man.
Right here.
Senator Zenzinger, do you have something to say?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I actually had to write some stuff down, and I started crying when I was just listening to the tribute. So I knew that I was going to have to write this down. So Senator Coram and I have a very special connection, and that's because we come from the same place. And place contextualizes people. It connects people, and it gives them a sense of belonging and rootedness. And so when I am near Don, I feel that sense of belonging, specialness, and rootedness. I catch the references. I understand his jokes probably too well. And as Don likes to say, we represent, Montrose High School graduates represent 3% of the legislature down here. I think we have the majority. Don is so generous to me personally. Whenever I go home, he introduces me as the other senator from Montrose. One time I came home to visit my parents, and I was at the 4th of July parade, and I saw Don, and I said, "Yay, Don!" And he pulled me into the parade with him, and he made me walk with him. I was walking with the Republican Party for the entire Main And it was great. We had so much fun. And they welcomed me with open arms because Don welcomed me with open arms. My parents are die-hard Union Democrats, but they vote for Don. And part of that has to do with because they're educators and they know that Don stands up for educators. Don stands up for education, and Don stands up for students. And so I've been privileged to be able to carry a number of bills with Senator Coram on education, some really tough ones too. But I didn't worry because Don had my back, always had my back. And sometimes we even would disagree, and he'd say, "It's okay, Rachel, I'll follow your lead." And I'd say, "Are you sure?" And he'd say, "Yes, I'll follow your lead." And he always did. I could talk a really long time, but we have many tributes to get through today. So I just want to end with a song that both he and I have quoted several times down here, but I can't think of any better description. And it's an Aaron Tippin song called "You've Got to Stand for Something." And it starts off with, "Now, Daddy didn't like trouble, but if it came along, everyone knew which side that he'd be on. He never was a hero or this county's shining light, but you could always find him standing up for what he thought was right. He'd say, 'You got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You've got to be your own man, not a puppet on a string. Never compromise what's right and uphold your family name. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.' Thank you for being my place and my family and my friend."
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 ideas I want to share. I've had a chance, the pleasure of working on some pretty tough bills with Don Coram. And as each of us know in the chamber, it can be hard to do bipartisan legislation sometimes. Sometimes it's easier to do bipartisan legislation, sometimes it's harder. I've picked some hard ones with Don Coram, including a bill that was really close to my heart and something that he got involved with me early after I reached out to him. And I'm grateful for that, and he helped teach me how to do that in the Senate. And I want to say thank you. My second idea I want to share with you is what I was always told growing up in Western Kansas was a cowboy contract, which is when you shake somebody's hand, the deal's done. You look them in the eye, you shake their hand, and you know that what you've agreed to is finished. That's Don Coram. We all know that. I'm not sure why I'm getting choked up talking about a handshake, but that's sometimes the most poignant moments in this work. We were trying to finish up the budget situation, all the ballot initiatives that were headed, and Don and I shook hands on Prop EE, if you'll remember that episode, to finish those negotiations, finish those discussions, and to get that in front of the voters. And it's a moment I will not forget. The third idea I want to share with you is Don's invitation to me and my wife when we were out in Montrose to join him for lunch. And I've often thought that the highest compliment you could ever pay someone is to introduce them to your friends. And Don did that day. Introduced me to one of his close friends in Montrose. We had a wonderful lunch, had a chance to talk and joke, and the liberal from Denver having lunch in Montrose. But it was a compliment I will never forget. So I thank you for teaching me how to be a senator.
I need the segue.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm grateful to follow the previous two speakers because it ties closely to one of the thoughts that I wanted to share. Don Coram evokes a significant amount of emotion. You just saw that from the two previous speakers. The emotion in that case was a connectedness, an affection, a respect, a welling up of all sorts of the best parts of who we are as human beings. Don Coram evokes a different emotion in me. I have abject fear, terror, you could call it. Don's favorite thing is to sidle up to me and say, hey, how about we go stand over next to the rail? It's only about 35 feet down. Don's offered to throw me off of all the highest places in Denver, Colorado at some point or another. I kid, because he's kidding when he does that. I've got this three-thing theme going. I'll do a little triangle on everybody here. I have three things that I would like to share with you about Don Coram. The first is irreverent. That's right, he has three fingers. The first is irreverent. The second is irreverent. And the third is irreverent. You all have spent enough time with Don to know that if I said the sorts of things that Don says, I would be having a conversation with law enforcement, HR, my grandmother, I'm not sure, but I would be talking with someone and the conversation would not be going well for me. No, I jest, but he is irreverent, there's no question about that. I thought about actually encouraging him, because it is a safe distance to the nearest balcony from which I can get thrown. I thought about actually inviting Senator Coram to come up and share some space with me, because quite frankly, he's a whole lot funnier than I am, and I'm a really good straight man for Don Coram. So I could give him so many opportunities to say so many things, but they'd all be so irreverent that we probably shouldn't bring them into the well. Seriously, the second and third points that I do want to talk about are a little bit more serious. Don's incredibly creative. If you've watched him as a policymaker, as a legislator, the creativity just bubbles forth. It's obvious to see. He's working at things from a different way, a different angle than you might conventionally think would be the way to go after it. And Don and I have had a couple opportunities to sit down and actually just break bread, interact, and hear a little bit more about his life. And he is incredibly creative as an entrepreneur, and he has all sorts of different things going on over the course of his life. Even now, even though he's an old, worn-out cowboy, he's still got a lot of stuff going on. The third point that I really think about when I think about Don, and it goes back to where we kind of started this conversation, is he's connected. He just connects in a visceral way, and you experience that from the two previous speakers on an emotional level. But he's also incredibly connected to his community. The most powerful things and speeches I've heard in the well tend to be when we're really bringing home to this well, to this chamber, to this building, the people whom we represent. And that's something that Don Coram does incredibly well. He is so connected to the people and the situations and the circumstances in his district, and he has delivered that so many, many times. He's also connected to, and I don't quite understand what the woman sees in him, he's also incredibly connected to Diana, and she's gone through a couple health tumbles here in the recent year, and his love and connection and concern for her has been obvious in some of the conversations we've had and some of the actions he's taken and some of the times he's been gone from here, quite frankly, when he needed to be gone from here on behalf of his lovely wife, Diana. I think of her as Saint Diana, quite frankly. Don can be a little bit irascible, on the edge of containable, manageable, and so I got assigned this job, I actually campaigned for it, like for about 35 seconds, of whip a little while back. And we had a circumstance where, no, Don, no, Don, no, Don. And so he and I had a conversation afterwards. And this is part of the connection. He said, okay, yeah, fair enough. I'm always going to be who I am. And I said, bless you, thank you, yes. But, you know, we need to have some degree of organization. He said, you know what, I will do. And for most people, you think in politics, of course, that's an easy give. Not for Don Coram. The man is his own man. He said, here's what I'll do, Lundeen. I will always be with you on the procedural things. And he always has been. Dead solid to his word on that. Even when he disagreed with what we might be trying to do beyond that. But, back to the cowboy contract, he said to me, he volunteered it to me. I didn't extract it from him. I'll always be with you on that. So, I guess I'm going to throw one more little triangle of ideas at you. Honestly, sincerely, truly, when I think of Don Coram, the first thing I do is I roll my eyes. The second thing I do is I groan. And the third thing I do is I shake my head. That is the visceral, connected set of relationships that I have with a man I call my friend. And no, Don, I don't want to go to the rail and take a quick, close look at the floor below. Don Coram, I appreciate you as a man, as a senator, and as a cowboy.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor to come and share a few words about my good friend, Don Coram. I've had the pleasure of serving with Senator Coram for many years, serving together in the House first and then now in the Senate. And I think my favorite memories of Don is when I used to organize outings to drag bingo in the House. And we've already heard a little bit about Senator Coram's incomparable sense of humor. But Senator Coram managed to achieve something that I've rarely seen from anyone else, and that is being able to outwit a drag queen. Those drag queens didn't know what was coming when they tried to, have some fun with Senator Coram, and he shot it right back at them in a better way than they could have even ever imagined. When Hamburger Mary's moved from its current location to a different location, we went to drag bingo one night, and he and Diana took over. It became the Coram show because this one particular drag queen was really struggling, and he's like, we got this. We'll help you out. So the Corams take the stage, make the jokes, and the whole place is erupting in laughter. Don and Diana are two of the most down-to-earth, amazing people that I have ever met, and it's apparent the love that they have for each other. Senator Coram often refers to me affectionately as his son. One could be so lucky to have parents like you and Diana. I'll miss you, my friend.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is a great pleasure and honor to share with you my experience with the senator. And the senator has this very human nature about him. He's funny, he has this quick wit, he's just a joy to be around, really. And he's very approachable. And he's very folksy about who he is. He's very comfortable in his skin. And I believe that I am who I am today because of you. And the reason I say that is because you are so open and receptive to different thoughts of views. So I always saw you as an ally because when I had a bill that I wanted to be co-sponsored, you were one of the first top 3 people I thought about. And very seldom did you say no. And I think the reason for that is because there was some type of alignment or connectivity between what I was trying to do for my constituents and what you were trying to do for the state and for your constituents. So if you know Senator Coram, you know that he always stands for who he is serving, always. So his framework and the tone of his message is always going to be about the principles that he stands for and that he speaks about. I'm not a rancher. I tried to have a small garden. That didn't work out. The weeds just took over. But when you think about the hard work that it takes to be a rancher and then to do this work here, it's not easy. I can tell you, Senator, that I really miss seeing your wife around here, because seeing you guys together helps me to appreciate the importance of relationships and family, and you guys demonstrated that as a couple, and I appreciate that. Also, Senator Coram was never startled. Like when I would have black students here, if I would have black people here, he never gave the impression that they were out of place, or he was shocked to see them. He would strike up a conversation, he would engage people to the point that it made them feel comfortable in this place instead of feeling like they didn't belong here. And I thank you for that. We have sponsored several bills together. I can't remember all of them, but the one that he sponsored that this session was the one that created a license tag for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. This man did that. It wasn't my sorority. It's a black sorority based on one of the founding chapter members in his district. Now, he could have chose not to celebrate her legacy and just say, well, I don't do license plate bills, and I don't know much about your sorority. But because he knew this woman and her legacy, and he did his own research, because he doesn't just sign up for a bill just to be signing up for it. He has to really believe in it. This man here in the state of Colorado has passed the Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated license plates. And I can't tell you how many Delta Sigma Theta sorority women that are in the state of Colorado or in this nation, but there's hundreds and thousands of them. And I'm here to say thank you for celebrating black women, for that organization that dates back. My sorority is 1908. I don't know what that, they might be 1910 or something like that. It's just been a joy to watch you, to see how insightful you are, and I just like who you are. You're just a very kind, approachable man, and for that, I am so grateful I had the opportunity to work with you. Thank you.
Senator Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry to step out. Well, Don Coram, I mean, look, it's been said, but I'll say some of it again. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for knowing what your principles are. Thank you for knowing what your conscience is and sticking with it. I mean, that's a trait that's so valuable in this chamber. And thank you for doing the work. I mean, if I just look at the volume of bills over the years and the things you've been willing to champion and step into, you know, just that volume of work deserves an awful lot of respect. You know, I'm sorry about the districting. I just feel like there are big shoes to fill. And for all of you who may not know, I mean, Don Coram presents a very special challenge to me because I have to take over a number of counties. Basically, I have only my own home county left and pick up counties that Don has represented for years. And Joyce and I have spent a lot of time with the Corams because, as you may know, most of you know, my wife is also a politician on the State Board of Education, and we have spent a lot of time in Montrose and down that way campaigning over the years, because it has been years. So I'll tell you, and I think somebody else mentioned this, you can judge a politician and how much they're loved if you go to meals with them. You go to lunch at the local eateries, and people come up and talk, and you see the kind of interaction, the kind of people that the hometown boy deals with. And, you know, Don and Dinah go home almost every weekend, so they love their town, and people there know them. So the Corams are really a legend in that part of the state. They really are, and it goes back a while. So when I think about, you know, having to replace a legend, so Don will be my constituent. I think I'll be his. So it's going to be an interesting next few years as I try to meet those folks, 2 years anyway, while I try to meet those folks, pick up on those issues, which are, of course, a little bit different, a little bit unique than my state, the part of the state that I loved for 10 years, Northwest Colorado. But I look forward to getting a lot of help from the Corams, meeting a lot of people, learning a lot of issues, having a lot of nice lunches again. So Don, thank you for everything you've done, and I'm going to be seeing a lot of you, partner.
Thanks. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Where do you start with Don Coram? With me, with me, as I told a little story before about me getting into politics and running for office. And I've got a funny one for you, because when I was first getting going and first meeting some people and talking with people, somebody had, I still can't remember who it was, said, well, you need to talk to Coram. I'm like, what the hell's a Coram? You know, who's a Coram? They kept saying, well, you got to talk to Coram. We think he's supporting your opponent. I was like, well, where is this guy? I mean, where does he live? And they said, well, he's in Montrose. And I was like, well, we're 60, 70 miles away. He's in Montrose County. I'm in I didn't get the connection, right? I just was like, is this like the Montrose Mafia? I mean, what the hell was it? So I called this Coram guy, you know, and he was kind of, as he normally is, a little short, kind of snotty on the phone. And I said, well, I'd like to meet you, Coram. He's like, sure, meet me at this coffee shop. What's that one called on Main Street? Coffee Trader. He said, you know, whatever the heck date we set. So I drove to Montrose, all the way to Montrose. Now keep in mind, if you haven't been out there, there's nothing between Grand Junction and Montrose, basically, other than poor little Delta. Poor little Delta. And the whole drive down there, I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing down? I should be talking to somebody in Grand Junction. This is dumb. So anyway, I get to Montrose, get to the coffee shop, and he was very nice. He introduced himself. So we started talking, and I was like, okay, I just got to put all this on the table. What the hell do you have to do with my election in Grand Junction? And of course, he's pretty proud of himself, as we know Don. He rears back in his chair. He goes, well, you know, we've been involved in politics down here for, whatever, 100 years. I don't know what he's, you know. And he goes, you don't have to worry about me. You got to worry about her. And I thought, who? And here comes Diana in the door. The Queen of Montrose comes wandering in the door, and I'm thinking, this is getting creepy. But she was so sweet. We sat down and had a chat. And I just told him, I said, I'm getting this message that you're somehow trying to interfere with Mesa County politics and you're supporting this clown I'm supposedly running against, which we found out wasn't true, but somebody had started this rumor. Because believe me, Don is not that intelligent to understand other cities, right? Well, kind of. But we had a great talk, and what I found out later is that what it was that in our part of the country, different counties get together and have discussions about, we deal with Garfield County, we deal with Montrose County, Delta County. All the different counties do talk with each other, which is good, it's healthy. But somehow, some way, somebody had started this rumor that this clown I was running against that was a good friend of Don Coram. And you never did meet him, did you? I don't think so. So, but back to the first thing I said was the person you had to get past wasn't this guy. It was Diana. And she was sweet as the day was long. Just amazingly sweet. Always has, always will be. And I guess I passed the test. I don't know, because she eventually went out and told a few of her internal connections that I was a good guy. So I made it. Fast forward, Don Coram and I in the house. Oh, Lord. Same office. For some reason, the majority thinks it's funny to compact human beings into very tiny places. So there was 4 of us in a box. Myself, Senator Coram, Lori Sane, and Kathleen Conti. So we all had to get to know each other within the first 15 minutes. And oh my gosh, what a time we had. There's a gentleman in the back of the room named JD and Susie, God bless both of you, who had to put up with both of us. But Don and I got to where we would have some fun. Things like bouncing a ball in an open window and seeing if a dog will jump out. Just little fun things you do in western Colorado. Dog didn't quite make it. Although Don tried. I was throwing a ball, he was throwing biscuits, but we couldn't get the dog to go at the window.
Thanks, Ray.
You're welcome. I thought I'd get that out there so somebody can do a flyer. But we had a great time. We talked a lot, got to know him very well. And again, the wonderful Diana Coram was there as his aide at the time. She would make us cookies and cakes, and we both now carry those things with us. But again, the sweetest woman in the world. And his rock, don't let him fool you. All this tough guy Don Coram stuff, no. It's not him. It's the woman behind him. She is amazing. And we pray for her too, by the way, every day. Policy, we dealt with a lot of policy. We come up with some kind of interesting ideas. We ran a lot of ag bills together because that's what we did over there. But he was always a gentleman. To the previous speakers, everybody's saying the same thing about Don. He's just such a gentleman. We'd come in the morning and make coffee and shoot the breeze, and we always had fun stories to tell each other. But everybody we ran into on our way to the chamber or away from the chamber was his friend. Everybody. Both sides of the aisle. It didn't matter. Don is a friend of everybody in this building. We've been blessed to have him. I'm blessed to have him as a friend. Now we're going to be 60 miles apart. We can still have coffee. We're going to have some fun. A wonderful human being. Wonderful. I stand here thinking, this chamber and this building has no idea the talent they're losing, the people they're losing. We've got more to come that are just incredible human beings. And yes, we'll be replaced, and yes, this place will move on, but I think it's going to be a little diminished from what it is now. So thank you, Don, for everything you did and being a friend.
To you, bud.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, is this my second 10 minutes? Thank you, sir. I feel a little bad because I had to run off on a quick errand for my daughter, and I missed talking about my good friend John Cook. I see his likeness is over there. Not really. A little lighter, a little more handsome. Less Hispanic. I can see that in the eyes. Yeah, I can see quite a bit of difference. But I just want to say a quick word because I feel bad I didn't get a chance to get up here when John was up here. Another rock star, man. You guys, you're losing another doozer. I mean, I'm telling you, John he's smart. He knows exactly what he's doing at every single moment of the day. I lied. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean that. I apologize. Half of every day. But he's just been such a rock star. He's been so good to me. Our caucus members dearly love the man. And we're going to miss you terribly as well. You always have a component in this building of somebody that's done something, right? We talk about ag. We talk about oil and gas. We talk about construction, law. Then we have a lawman. Sounds like we should be playing a song right now. Giddy up, go, or something. But his lawman experience has been invaluable to us to understand what the gentleman behind him talks about. He had to apply it, and he had to think about it, and it's amazing how we've been able to do this. And we have another attorney over here, and this guy would help us unscramble what a law enforcement officer has to do in a very split second to make those decisions based on what the lawyers said was going to happen. And he's made that brilliantly clear to all of us. It's been fantastic working with you. Again, we're all going to miss each other. I got to come play golf with you down in the Carolinas. So anyhow, thank you very much, John. Again, I'm sorry I had to blow out of here for a few minutes, but all right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, there's several of my colleagues here that I would like to say a few words about, but I'm going to speak about Don Coram. First of all, I don't know what it will be like next year to not have a quorum. We won't be able to start the session. Somehow it'll start, but it'll be without a quorum. So many wonderful things have already been said about you, and I was thinking earlier today, what would I say about Don that would really speak to my love and regard for him and respect. And I remembered that in a time past when it was Camelot and we were in the majority in this chamber, I chaired Senate Judiciary, and that means you get 3 votes, Senator Lee, and others only have 2. And I was chair, and the sheriff was the vice chair, and we needed a 3rd member. And I looked around here and I said, look at these. Well, I won't say this is my caucus, I want to say that. But, you know, it is harder in the Senate to build a committee than it is in the House because of our numbers, and the committee numbers are still the same. And I didn't have another lawman, I didn't have another lawyer, and I thought, who is thoughtful, can grasp the issues, will, on the one hand, follow our lead, and on the other, think independently and not always do that blindly or without serious thought about what the policies are. And I said to the majority leader, I want Don Coram, because I know he's thoughtful, I know he's smart, I know he'll think about the issues, and I know he'll listen to me, but he won't do it just because I said so, because sometimes the sheriff and I went in opposite directions. So,
But I didn't like you.
well, any better than me, but We had some great bills in those days. We had they all came from the other side of the mountains. Things like selling bodies and I mean really interesting issues. And you were able to and did. It was obviously we're studying the bills and dealing with all new subject matter for you. And I have always admired and respected the way that you took to that task of going to that committee that is like, people dread going there. I don't know, I think it's the current chair that might make that the case. Your love for Diana and your family is evident and remarkable and a rare thing in this day and age, and I've always admired and respected that. You often say that the R after your name is for rural, not Republican, and you've been a good Republican caucus member, but more than that, you've been a great rural caucus member for what matters to your community, and what matters to your community ultimately matters to the health of this state, and I think you know that and have spoken about that. And have always, I don't know of a single time, we talk about disagreeing without being disagreeable, but I don't know of a single time we've disagreed that it's ever been disagreeable. It has always been respectful, and we've always understood each other's viewpoint. And, you know, sometimes El Paso County isn't Montrose. And then another really tough and hard thing to talk about, a decision we participated in. When I was House Judiciary Chair, we had the unfortunate situation of a district attorney over in Senator Coram's judicial district who had committed some egregious offenses, crimes that ultimately he pleaded guilty to, and it was basis for impeachment. Not because he was too hard a DA or too soft a DA or any of that, but his office conduct was impeachable. And the harder part about it, and it brings home how close the relationships and knowledge of the community are, is that Senator Coram personally knew this individual. I nominated him. And he tells me he nominated him. You know, one of the things that happens when you have many, many close friends is sometimes they disappoint you. The question came up of who would introduce those articles of impeachment, and it ultimately didn't come to that. And I had a conversation with then Representative Coram, and I said, I want to talk to you about this. I'm the chair of Judiciary, and I know the ranking member at that time, Claire Levy. We will do that. And Don said, no, it's my district, it's my community, it's my responsibility, and I will be the one who will bring those articles of impeachment. I don't think he said this out loud, but he would not shy from what had to be done for the good of his community. And as it turned out, the resolve that both he and I and others showed with respect to that situation, I received a phone call the day before we convened from the DA's counsel saying that he would be resigning effective the next day. But that was a tough and hard and difficult thing, and that's when you find out what people are made of. And I found out that Don Coram is made of integrity and respect, and even care for that individual who had done terrible things, but at the same time caring for him because he was part of that community. And that's what I will always remember about you, Don, that you're kind, respectful, caring, and always will do what you believe to be the best without compromise about what you believe to be the best. And that's a different thing than compromising your values. That's not compromising your values, but finding compromise that will move the state forward and move the community forward. I'm going to miss you.
Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Don Coram, it has been such a pleasure to work with you. We also first met in the House, and he has a way to always bring levity to difficult conversations, jokes about even when he lost his finger. When I asked what happened, he immediately responded with a joke that made you laugh. And one of my best memories, though, is in the House. You know that him and Lois Court had a very special relationship, and they loved each other very much. And for Hummers, Don played Lois Court. And for all of you who didn't get to see this, you can visualize he had big balloons up here in front, wig on, glasses. Half a football, actually, is what it was. Nerf footballs. But that was one of the funniest skits that we had for Hummers and made me laugh, I think all of us. One of the best memories that I have. But Don, I didn't want to miss the opportunity just to tell you how wonderful it's been to know you. The couple times a year that we're driving through your community, I wish that we would have told Don that we were in town so we could schedule something, but I always knew that I would see you. And now we have to actually make that effort. And I hope that you keep in touch. You're such a wonderful person. And, being down here, we've partnered on many pieces of legislation that unexpectedly that you came on board with, including increasing access to contraception and bringing the 12-month birth control bill. And you always bring common sense to the policies that you advocate for and say, I don't support abortion, therefore I want to increase access to contraception. And it was because of your partnership that we were able to get that done in split chambers. And I think that you bring that to all the policies that you've worked on. And when you are upset about something, we listen. Because we trust you, your values, we trust who you are, and the reasons that you're here fighting. And so it really has been a pleasure. Now we have to make an effort. I hope that you'll let me know when you're in town, and I hope to see you in Moffat County.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry I wasn't able to hear all the other jabs.
Are we running short on time?
Yes, we're running short on time. Honestly, I'll say that Senator Coram has been my hero down here. There has never been an issue he shied away from, never been an issue he has not stayed true to, and he represents his district as well or better than anybody I have ever seen in my 16 years down here. And then there's some other things about him that, well, quite frankly, let's just be honest, start right off with, he's one of the few senators or elected officials that's been sleeping with his aides since he's been down here.
There's more.
Well, and then I say, and of course, Diana, for those of you that don't know, as I threw him under the bus, Diana would tell you the key word is sleeping. I know we've been talking about Don for a long time, and I don't want to duplicate many of the things. Just tell you that as my hero, as one of the people that when we sit down as East Slope versus West Slope, wasn't with us. It wasn't like that with us. We both actually understood the water world enough to understand that if Colorado would keep cotton picking Colorado's water in Colorado on the South Platte and the Arkansas, we wouldn't have to go to the West Slope for water. And until we figure it out, why would we be allowed to? We had those conversations. That's why we were so strong together on storage. Traveling with him on Interim Water Committee has been a true pleasure as we learn about each other. And then every now and then I sneak over to Montrose and see his lovely wife, and then he shows up. So when it came to ag issues, again, ag issues typically aren't partisan. They typically aren't East Slope versus West Slope. They're farm boy versus trying to educate our urban cousins. And he's been a champion there. I've loved carrying bills with him when it comes to rural internet and trying to do broadband, both him and Senator Donovan, as we worked on those rural issues to give rural access to education, broadband, all of those things. I'll quit there because I know he has the last word. So I will just say, Senator Coram, it's an honor to serve with you. It's an honor to have become your friend. You are a friend for life, and I look forward to keeping that. Thank you, sir.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Would you like to go into your last 10 minutes?
There's all this paraphernalia up here that I got to deal with. You know, I made a promise to Senator Coram to keep something private just between us. Get probably a little choked up here. So it wasn't very long ago when my family and I were in Lake Powell, and mostly due to stupidity probably, I had a tragic blender accident. I nearly severed my finger, my left hand, and I developed what is called necrotizing fasciitis, basically flesh-eating bacteria that was threatening my hand. And the doctor said, look, we're in the middle of nowhere in Utah here. Do you know anyone who might donate a finger to you?
I'm giving you the finger more than once.
And I thought, who do I know who's within driving distance of Lake Powell who might be willing to once again give me the finger? And so I called Ray Scott. And he said no. And then I called Colin Larson and Matt Soper and Chris Holbert and John Cook and Rachel Zenzinger and my parents, and they all said no. So when I ran out of people completely on that list, on the very bottom was Senator Don Coram. And I called Don, and together we crafted this story about how he really lost his finger and how it just got thrown away. But Don, a part of you will always be a part of me. And even though I hate you for being disobedient and truculent and...
It's a big word, I know.
Thank you. And not a team player when I want you to be. And irreverent. And the only person in the chamber that can get away with stuff, as the senator from El Paso County said, that would get me recalled or arrested or sent to HR. Just know that even when you're gone, everyone here at the Capitol is welcome to live a little piece of Don Coram anytime they want to. So for that, I thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if I want to follow that or not, but that made it really tough. Well, sweetheart. Yeah. if those that don't know, he's my sweetheart, and and I'm his precious, because we went to Israel together, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But sweetheart, I'm going to miss you. It's been a hell of a ride, and we heard, Senator Lundin say there are 3 things about him: irreverent, 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 and that's so true. And I would say irreverent, as we all know. As we've all said, if any of us would say what he says, we'd be out of here in a heartbeat. But I think it's in the delivery, and I think it's because we all know him. We know him so well. He's like, they say he's like an older brother to us, or like a crazy uncle. Crazy uncle to us, and but what he says is so darn funny that you can't help but laugh and not get upset, and we know it's good-natured and from the heart. So definitely irreverent and passionate. I think we've heard that how passionate he is when he comes down to the well here and he doesn't like something. He lets us know it, and he'll scream and yell into the microphone, but you know where he stands, and he's passionate about his bills, and he's passionate about his district and water and the Western Slope, and we're so thankful to him that he's allowing us to take all that water from over the Western Slope and bring it over to the Eastern Slope where we really need it, and so thank you for that. I think they have a sign of somebody that's really intelligent or smart is that they have a great sense of humor or quick-witted, and that's Don. He's very quick-witted. He can remember a joke or a story at the drop of a hat. Some of us were in our office. I think it was my assistant from last year talking about some kind of whale, about a whale or something off the coast, and without skipping a beat, Don pipes up and talks about, I'm not going to repeat the joke because it might be inappropriate here at the well, but it talks about, this whale. And it's like, we're just amazed and stunned. It's like, how do you do this? How do you know? I mean, I might hear a joke today and I'll forget it by tomorrow. But Don is very quick-witted and comes up with these great stories. We heard about how principled he is, and he truly is one of the most principled people I've met. When Ellen Roberts left, she left 2 years early. He was going to fill her spot, and I think the majority leader wanted to put him on a couple of committees that he didn't want to be on. He didn't want to be on one of them, and he was not going to be on ag. And he threw a fit, and he goes, if I'm not going to be on ag, I'm not coming over to the Senate. I'm going to stay in the House where I can be on ag and make a difference for the Western Slope. And so he got put on ag, and I think because of him, we had to extend the ag committee to like 11. And because, what? Oh, 13. Oh, it was we had to extend it because if we put him on, we had to put another Democrat on. And so it was like, he was principled, he was sticking to his guns, he knows what's important to him, and it was agriculture. And he was going to be bound and determined to stay on an ag committee, whether it was in the Senate or in the House. I can't beat that one story that Senator Smallwood just told about the finger. I mean, that was a classic. And I was thinking before he even started talking about that, but the real reason that I think he cut it off intentionally so he could flip people off with impunity. And, you know, he's just, hey, I'm just saying hi to you. And so that's why I really think he got it. But we call each other sweetheart and precious because we spent 8 close personal days together in Israel. And if you've ever been to Israel, we went on the Israeli trip, and if you've ever been to Israel, the beds are narrow, and they're short, and they're close together. We walk into the first hotel, and we both got in, and we stopped, and we looked, and we go, what the, where's the other bed? And it was like, no, it's like right here. And it's like, okay, Don, I said, look, I know you're old, so when you get up in the middle of the night to go pee, you walk around the bed. You don't roll over. He didn't listen. He didn't listen. We got to be very close on that trip. There was a lot of walking when you go to Israel on the Israeli trip, and I had a bum knee or a bad knee, and it swelled up, and so we go back to the hotel, and we asked for a bag of ice. We went, you know, hey, can we get a bag of ice for his knee? They bring back a garbage bag full of ice. I mean, literally a garbage bag this big full of ice. And it took 2 of us to lift it onto his leg. And we sat there together with this bag of ice on his leg, getting even closer to each other. It was a great trip, and he started off saying, he didn't like me very much when he first met me. Well, the feeling was mutual. He was in the house, and it's like, oh God. So when it came time to the trip to Israel, you killed my bill. That's right. So the reason, the 2 stories that we talked about that people were complaining about me was that one about that on Ray Scott's bill that we wouldn't get nobody would move the bill. That was his in the house. And so I think that's why he hated me, and I hated the bill at the time, so that's why I hated him. And the second one, the story about when I was in the chair, and we knew Owen Hill knew he was going to get rolled, and he told me to, said it was in the rules, blah blah blah. He was the guy that stood up with the Dems and caused that whole fiasco. It wasn't me. It was him that caused it. What? It was, yeah. So when it came time for the Israeli trip, you put down who you want a room with, or you can have your own room. I started off with Hugh McKean. I want to stay with Hugh McKean. Well, he then decided he wanted his own room, and I started off with Alec and Garnett, and second, and he goes, nah, he's taking his wife. And I started off with Bob, and Bob, I'm busy. I don't want to do that. Very bottom of the list, there he was. Yeah, 4th. Yeah, there he was. So he and I roomed together for those 8 days, and I got to talk about a hoot. Somebody mentioned the word hoot earlier. Talk about a hoot. This guy is a hoot to stay with and spend 8 days and 8 nights with, and it was a great trip. One thing you might not know about me is I really like musicals, and I don't know if you've seen The Unsinkable Molly Brown. There's a song in there. Yeah. No, My Fair Lady here, yeah. But there's a song in there about Molly Brown's husband with his friends, and it says, "He's my friend, and he'll be my friend to the bitter end." And the bitter end, even though the bitter end is a million years away, and that's how I feel about Don. He'll be my bitter friend, bittersweet. He'll be my friend to the bitter end of this earth, and until the day I die. And Don, love you, man, and sweetheart, it's been a great run.
Thank you, Precious.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I begin, I would just like to know who selects seat assignments on the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. Does everyone know where I sit? I sit in the middle of this awfully... Yes. And I sit right in the middle between Larry Liston and Don Coram. I didn't know Don Coram before he became a state senator. I knew who he was, but I didn't know Don Coram. So I just want to say to everyone here, you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. You think that the only jokes he says are at the microphone in the well? No. No. I start my day off with limericks from Larry and some pretty wild, raunchy, inappropriate, sometimes funny, mostly not, jokes. I start my day off by saying, don't ever say that in public. Please don't ever refer to them like that in public. You can only say that to me. You do understand that. In this room, you can only say that to me. In fact, anywhere in the world, you should only say that saying to me. Do not go say that out loud. You'll get us sued. You'll make us look bad. Please, please do not go say that to them. Ever. Don't do it. That's pretty much how I start off my day. In fact, one day, Don came in and he called me a name. It was an acronym. I'm not going to say what the name was, but I will tell you what the acronym stands for. Babe in total control of herself. Right there. And I started off my day by saying, and I am the only woman in this room that you can say that to. But, well, there you go. You should not have done that. You know, and I know we all think that Don Coram is just so quick with a joke and a quip and a little story and a little saying about folks. And I'm telling you, while you're all up here talking or trying to get your bills passed, he's got little things to say. He said one time, and I repeat, well, and it was someone up at the microphone trying to explain why they didn't like the bill, but they were maybe going to vote for it, and they were just going on and on and on. And he looks at me and goes, you know, even a dead fish goes with the flow. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? But I'm like, okay, great. And when we were, see, I made little notes when he would say these, you know, important little things to me so I could remember. So if he went to repeat them to me, because, you know, Don is old. Like, you bring the median age in our group way up. But during budget sessions, budget times, when we're talking about the long bill, he told me, this was last year, he leans over and he goes, when can a Democrat, I think maybe the senator from Denver was up here, or it might have been the senator from Commerce City presenting the budget. He said, when can a Democrat make you a millionaire? And I'm looking at him thinking, never? You know, I'm like, I don't know when. And he goes, when you're a billionaire. I'm not, oh, thank you. Thank you, Don. Thank you for that little quip. And I think one of his favorite jokes, or one of the things he says, that he has repeated this one several times to me over the course of the last year and a half. That's how long I've known Don Coram. He says, when somebody, yes, it feels longer, it feels a lot longer, but he would say things like, he goes, you know, do you know when a woman is about to say something smart? And I would look at him and said, you know, you should be careful because I'm a black belt in karate. And he just looks at me and goes, but do you know when? Do you know when? Come on. Do you know when? You know when a woman is about ready to say something smart. And I just look at him finally, because if you don't talk to him, he just keeps going. And I said, when? He goes, when she starts her sentence with, a man once told me. And I'm like, right? Right? And I know you just think he's so smart with these jokes, but have you ever noticed Don when he sits in his chair and he leans back and he's got his phone and he's sitting there going like this? It's because he's on the internet looking up jokes. And here are his 3 websites that he likes to go through pretty much. I'm not going to tell you, there's actually 5. I'm only going to give you 3. The first one is Jokes so bad, they're actually funny.com. That's right there. The next webpage that he goes to is 17,000 Stupid Sayings. That's you. Yes, yes. Don, I can do that too. And the last webpage that I'm going to repeat or mention, because I'm not going to repeat them, I'm not going to say them all, but the last one I'm going to mention is he goes to this website that's called Jokes That Should Never, Ever Be Repeated. And of course, he repeats those jokes, but pretty much only to me. I own the website. You own that website? I am not surprised. In all seriousness, he does say all those jokes in the morning. Every morning when I'm in the session starts off with a joke, and he's either telling it to me or to Sonnenberg, who sits right behind us. Which, when he turns, you would think he'd maybe turn the other way so I don't have to hear it, but he turns where he's facing me, and then he starts speaking to Sonnenberg, and so I hear all the jokes. And then that's when you hear Jerry go, whoa, kind of laugh, and I'm like, it was not funny. That was not a funny joke. And neither of you should say that ever again. But I will say this about Don Coram, and you heard about the things where he's kind and he's respectful and he's thoughtful and he cares about kids. He fights with everything in his fiber for things that he is extremely passionate about, which include rural Colorado and kids. You do a lot of bills on kids. But he is just truly one of the good guys. He is just a good guy in his heart, all the way through, down to the bone, all the way down to all 9 fingers. He is just really, truly one of the good guys. And it is a highlight, even though I just teased you about it. It is a highlight when I come in and we talk about our weekends and talk about what's going on, and he starts off with a joke, starts off with something somewhat funny, but it's a highlight of the day. I have really, really enjoyed sitting next to you. And yes, I'm not going to thank Chris. You should be thanking me. I'm pretty sure I kept us out of some lawsuits. But I just really appreciate you. And I love you, man.
Thank you.
I said I was funny. I just want you to know you said
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the good senator from Broomfield, or Brighton, I've done that before. Good senator from Brighton. I only assigned you that seat because I knew how much fun it was to sit next to Don. Yeah. There is a chance, we don't know, the voters will decide, but there's a chance that 3 of our colleagues, or 2, or 1, or maybe none, but there's a chance that 3 of them might be in Congress together. We'll see. I'm disappointed that Senator Coram won't have a chance to run for re-election in the state Senate. As I said before, he represents his district very, very well. The district's changed. Senator Simpson now gets a bit different district. But Senator, my family moved to Glenwood Springs when I was 6 months old, and my heart is in western Colorado. I truly hope that more people will go visit your part of the state. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the jokes. And now, colleagues, would you please welcome Senator Don Coram.
Thank you. I think this is one of the finest funerals I've ever been to. You know, at funerals, they always say all these nice things about people, and you're sitting there like, who in the hell are they talking about? But thank you so much for the kind words. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you have talking about my soulmate so kindly. Thank you. It's a little tough when you're 300 miles from home and the person that you love so much is not with you. And frankly, She's got some health issues that we're dealing with. We will win, but it's been tough. And she has been a rock. Thank you. Thank you. Chris, I truly remember when we came in together, and you may recall that I told Speaker McNulty in our first caucus meeting that, frankly, I had opted for cremation. I wasn't there to make friends. And, but, you know, the amazing thing is you have allowed me to stay true to my principles and make friends. And that's been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible. I do stand for what I believe. I will take on a buzzsaw if that's necessary. But one of the bills that first came out that Chris talked about civil unions. Speaker McNulty came to me and said, I understand your situation, and you know, we're coming back, and if you want to be taken off that committee, I understand. And my comment was, no, I will stay on the committee. The fact is, I was not against civil unions. I was against it because the voters of the Colorado had voted. I was standing with the voters of Colorado. And we passed that, and frankly, I think it was the reason for a change in majority. And the first thing that came back was the legislature did change it. And I remember after it passed, I walked up to Speaker Ferrandino and I put my arm around him. Mark, I want to thank you so much for getting this out of the way. I said, one of the guys, political guys that I truly admired in my life, and I've admired Republicans and Democrats alike. But I said, I read a statement from Speaker Sam Rayburn, and he said the fastest way to end a political career is to get caught in bed with a dead woman or a live man. I said, buddy, I'm only worrying about dead women now, so thank you. But we had a good time. And then there was a trip to Israel. But Senator Cook, you brought up the situation with the district attorney, and once again, you have to stand on your principles. I had known this young man his entire life, and he made a mistake. And the story was that, yes, that is impeachable, and I said to them, Senator Gardner, Senator Cook, I'm an old rancher. I never ask anybody to put my horse down for me. It's my job, and I will do the job. And that's basically how I have tried to lead my life in this chamber. I'm the same guy that came in 12 years ago, and I'm leaving the same. I will stand on my principles. I will disagree with you. And there's probably not very many of you in this room that we haven't disagreed at one time or another on. But I hope I have never been disagreeable. And I think that's how I will continue to live my life. I believe that if you work hard enough, there are solutions. Compromise is not a bad word. I've been criticized for compromise. My comment back to them is, do you think the founders of our nation sat down with the Declaration of Independence in 45 minutes, had an agreement? It took 56 days of compromise. And so I have tried to operate on being respectful, listening, and offer solutions. And I will continue that in my life no matter what my role is. I am frustrated with politics of our nation. I am sick and tired of extreme left. I am sick and tired of extreme right dictating the messages to America. And we in the Colorado General Assembly are prime examples that with respect and dignity, we can make a difference. Mr. President, I want to thank you. We talked about our trip to Israel, but for whatever reason, the rest of the group tried to leave me there. I went to the airport all excited to head home, and I find my flight is the next day. Senator Finberg, maybe because of his heritage or whatever, took pity on me because he did not want me left in Israel. Because I know in his own mind, he knows that I would have settled the conflict in the Middle East if I could have just stayed that extra day. So, thank you. It's truly, it's been a great ride. You know, life brings you what you have, and if you believe in God and country, it all works out. And the first thing we all need to learn here is we are not the ones in charge. With that, I thank you, and I appreciate my time with you, and you have not heard the last of me. Thank you. It's so nice that you give a man with 3 fingers a hand.